Well, hello friends now, and welcome to the Pirate Round. I be Captain Scaldopus here, and this be the Scarlet Raven. I want to welcome you to this episode of the Pirate Round, the New Year's edition, to where we're welcoming in the new year, and we're saying to all our friends that we hope you had a wonderful New Year's, and we hope this year coming up is going to be just as fantastic as the one that we just left behind us. And so, as we start out every episode of the Pirate Round, we start out with a drink. We start off with a toast. Oh, look at that. It's our new crew member, Pie. Well, hello, Pie. Folks, this is Pie. Pie-rat. Pirate. Well, now, Pirate, of course, Pie, is a friend of Bill G. And I don't want you to think now that our ship's becoming a
rat-infested
hulk. No, it's not that. We're just bringing in a few rats because they control the cockroaches and they look after the rum. You'll notice that Pie spends quite a bit of time over there by the rum cask, as does Bill G. So,
Pie, that's my glass.
Well, Pie demands that we have a sip of this fine Jamaican Mountain Red. Now, this fine Jamaican Mountain Red rum, you know, red rum, is cursed and spit at by any sane person who might see a rum anywhere laying along the beach, and they run in the other direction when they see it. But being pirates like we are, we're not afraid of this, are we? We're not afraid of cursed drinks, are we, Scarlet Raven?
How would I be afraid of a cursed?
Why would we at all? So, we welcome you now to this here episode of the Pirate Round, and we say, welcome, friends.
Welcome.
Hiya har.
Yar.
As bites. Well now, we actually do quite a bit of reading. I know it doesn't look like it or sound like it, but we do. And one thing we like to read about, friends, is pirates. Isn't that right, Scarlet?
Love reading about pirates. We have a whole library in our ship
we
about
sure do.
Pirates, and it grows all the time.
It's growing everywhere. It's growing like the belly of Anne Bonny. So, here is a book about Anne Bonny.
This is Anne Bonny, the Infamous Female Pyrate by Dr. Phillip Thomas Tucker. This is a historical book. This is not fiction. This is based upon research that Dr. Tucker has done. How much of it is factual and not is hard to say because, you know, history is sometimes hidden, and there are those who say they have found no information, and there's those who they've found lots of information. But this is a very good book. If you're interested in learning about Anne Bonny, more about Anne than Mary, or even a little bit about Jack, I would highly recommend this book.
Jack Rackham, we say.
Right. Now, who exactly was Anne Bonny, or Anne Bonn, as some will call her in history? So, Anne was born in Kinsale County, Cork, Ireland.
Cork.
County Cork.
County Cork.
Now, Kinsale County had a harbour, and...
Well, Kinsale would be the town. It'd be County Cork.
Right. Ireland. But Kinsale had a harbour.
True.
So it had a lot of ships coming in and out. Now, they say that she was born in April of 1698. Others say that she was born March 8th of 1700s. Which would make her about 21 years of age when 2021, by the time the whole Rackham thing went down.
By that time, she'd already lived a tremendous life.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, her father was William Cormac, who was a lawyer in Kinsale, and was quite wealthy and quite well known. Had quite the business as a lawyer, and he was married to a woman who was often quite sickly. And there was one time that she was sick, and William went to another home that they lived in, and he took one of the housekeepers, Mary or Peg Brennan, who was quite an attractive young woman, they say at the time. Well, while they were in this house, of course, William, being the man that he was, had a little affair with Mary.
I can't believe it.
Peg, as some called her, Brennan.
Peg must have been her nickname.
I think it was. And in that relationship, she became pregnant with William's child. And when they came back to the house after William's wife became better, it was found out that Peg was pregnant with child, which caused quite a bit of stir. And William's wife had her thrown out claiming that she had stolen silverware, which was quite a common thing. If you wanted to get rid of somebody in the time, you say they stole the silverware, and they'd throw them into the jail. So they threw Peg into the jail, and when they found out that she was pregnant, they actually released her. Now, she didn't really have much of a job at this time because the wife of William would not allow her back in the house.
True.
But William cared for her and supplied for her, and even took Anne in and raised Anne, at this point pulling her off as a boy, bringing her into the lawyer's office, where it is believed that Anne probably learned some things about being a lawyer and law of the time.
Oh, perhaps she learned how to read, of course, which
Right.
would be very valuable.
Right, and her father would have been quite literate,
True.
being a lawyer.
Yeah.
Now, as things went on, and there was a great scandal with William, he ended up, his law business started to falter, and he fled Ireland to the New World, to Charlestown, with Peg and Anne, where they landed around 1708, and he set up office as a lawyer and as a merchant and plantation owner. And he bought quite a nice plantation, I guess, northeast of Charlestown. About 60 miles, they say.
Quite a bit.
And life was pretty good. Anne was quite privileged at that time, being a daughter of a lawyer and a merchant and a plantation owner.
The landowning class.
Right, and she had pretty much her way. And her father had big plans of marrying her off, probably to one of his friends who Anne probably wouldn't have liked so much, because Anne being young and pretty, and all of William's friends were older, merchant class, and he wanted her to be in a good Irish Catholic family, but he also did not believe in slavery. But he was willing to make deals. Well, Peg grew sick, and William decided to have affairs with household keepers again.
Oh, goodness.
And Anne found out about one of these, and the rumor says that she actually stabbed one of these young women in a rage.
Well.
And when Peg died not long after, Anne blamed William. And she grew quite rebellious, and he sent her off to Charlestown to live with relatives.
Can see that.
While he had more fun with the household keep.
Quite a skirt chaser, this guy.
Quite a skirt chaser he was. Now, Anne, following in her own father's footsteps, decided to have a relationship with a young sailor she met in the taverns there by the name of James Bonny, or James Bonn, as some will say. And she was quite smitten with young James, who was a sailor and a pirate, and he had tales to tell. And she wanted to marry him, and she introduced James to her father eventually when he came to Charlestown, but her father did not approve of James. He was low class, and he was a sailor, and he didn't feel that he could provide very much for Anne, as much as he wanted Anne to be provided for. Well, Anne, being rebellious, ran off with James, dressing up as a male, sailing down to Nassau, and James at that point went off sailing, and Anne would hang out at the taverns where she would meet people, and probably where she met Calico Jack Rackham, or John Rackham.
Scandalous.
Scandalous. Much like her father, you might say.
Yeah.
And
Imagine that.
James Bonny, when he came back, decided that he was going to start turning evidence towards Rogers. Now, Anne did not like any bit of that. She thought that was very dishonest and wrong, and she was afraid that it might hurt Jack Rackham, who she was falling in love with. And Jack decided he wanted Anne, and decided that he was going to go to Wood Rogers and try to buy her off. But James Bonny would have not one little tiny bit of that. So the two ended up stealing a ship along with Jack's crew. Now, Jack had taken the pardon up to this point. And he decided to turn piracy again, which would be a very bad thing under Wood Rogers. He was a very hanging governor, and if he would let you take the pardon, but if you turned pirate again, that was it.
That's true.
He gave you one shot, and one shot was it.
Rough justice, they say.
Rough justice, right. So they sailed off into this ship, doing piracy, and Anne became pregnant, where he dumped her off in Cuba for a short time with some friends of his, where she had a son. Now, some say the son lived, and some say that died. There's no real record of it having happened. When Jack came back to Cuba, they left the child there, and Anne sailed back with him, And somewhere along this point, they met up with Mary Read. Now, Mary was dressing as a young male. We're not going to get much into Mary's story at this time. We're going to do that at another episode here in the soon future. But there was a scandalous belief on the ship that Anne and Mary, who was going by the name of Mark, dressing as a young male, were having an affair. And that Charles Johnson was actually labeling in his book that Anne and Mary were having a lesbian relationship. Now, if you really know the LGBTQ community very much, a lesbian is somebody who is strictly somebody who loves another female. If you're female, you love another female, you only want a relationship with another female. We know this could not be true because Anne was having a relationship with Jack Rackham, and Mary had been married previously to a young man, and eventually had a relationship with another young man on board the ship that they were on.
True.
So there's no way they could have been lesbian.
Well, it's interesting that he would classify them in their relationship as being lesbian. We know that probably they were bisexual, which is not an unheard of thing in that time.
Correct.
Men and women had relations with men and women, depending on who their affections were and how they strayed one way or the other. But also, at the time period that Johnson wrote his history of these pirates, there was a great move to sort of find some sort of classical reference within the literature there of the time. And in this time, he thinks about the island of Lesbos there in the Greek islands, populated exclusively by ladies who had relationships with each other, and there was no men there. And there's always been a sort of a fascination for people alive at this time, this kind of land of mystery and of ladies who have eschewed the company of men. And with this classical reference, of course, he wanted to bring that into his work and bring that up. It sounds very salacious, all these lesbian pirate women. They had to be so evil because they were in a relationship with each other. And piracy is evil, of course, and it attracts lesbian women who will, engage in salacious behavior aboard ship and that sort, dress as men, and then that sort of thing.
Now, another thing that would do too was if you started claiming that, it would cause a sensationalism in his book, which would cause great sales.
Oh yes,
and would improve his his monetary.
Well, sure, and people wanted to read about that, and
right.
buy books because it was titulating, and exciting. So it's one way to sell books, of course, as we know today.
Exactly.
Sex sells.
As we know it quite well. So anyway, as the two had quite the friendship, and as they sailed on, they met up with some turtle fishermen and had a party in a bay on the coast of Jamaica, on the western coast of Jamaica, and there they were having quite the party. And it was there when they were having a party that Captain Jonathan Barnett of the Snow Tiger and Jean Bonavardis, I'm probably saying that name wrong, came upon them. Now Jean was at one point related in history to Benjamin Hornigold. He had been with Hornigold, had become a pirate hunter with Hornigold.
Okay.
And Jean Bonavardis came upon the sloop, the William, a sloop of war, and a ship was fired and damaged his ship. Shot him. A shot was fired.
Yeah.
And he fled back to Barnett in the Snow Tiger to tell them that he'd come across these pirates who they'd been hunting. And when they got there, there were only 3 people up on deck. There was Anne, Mary, and one other who was said to have been Anne or Mary's lover. Jack Rackham and crew ran and hid below the decks, drunk and afraid. Now some say that Jack did it because he thought it might go favorably upon him if he was caught, that he wasn't fighting, that he wasn't doing piracy, and there was also rumors that Anne and Mary at this time were actually in charge, but there's no proof of that. So the two put up quite the fight, and the crew of 13 were captured, and the 13 includes Anne and Mary and the other lover, and they were taken to Spanish Town, Jamaica, where they were put on trial. Now, of course, the men were put on trial first, and it was deemed that they would be hung, and they were hung quite quickly. Before they were hung, Jack Rackham asked for Anne to come to him, and there we get the famous quote of Anne to Jack Rackham that had you only fought like a man, you needn't have died like a dog or hung like a dog.
Right. Sure.
And that was the last she ever saw of Jack Rackham, and Jack was, of course, hung the next day. Now, when Anne and Mary went to the court, they were quite quiet. But Anne, knowing law as she possibly did because of her father, knew that if she claimed her belly, it would give time for her and Mary to get maybe hope, or at least save the life of the children. Because at that time you wouldn't kill somebody if they were pregnant. You would wait until the child was born, then you would hang them and then put the child with a family or into an orphanage.
True.
Because the child was an innocent person. And was hoping, I think, at that time that her father would get notice from the merchant families and friends that they had in Spanish Town, Jamaica, which is part of Port Royal.
True.
And she was ended up vanishing pretty much from history. There's no record of her dying in the prison there. We know that she was pregnant and that she gave birth to yet another child, and she was believed to be taken back north by her father back to the New World, to Charlestown, where she ended up marrying a Joseph Burlow, who was Irish and wealthy, living in the Virginia area, and married Joseph, and the two had 6 children. And of course, there were the 2 that she supposedly had with Jack. One may have died, one may have not have died.
True.
One son, they believe, was named John Cormac Bonn, or it could have been John Burlow. Took the name of the father, of the adopted father.
Oh.
And Anne then vanishes even more so in history, because she would have kept her name clean and unknown. Had anyone found out at that time that she was Anne Bonny, then Woodes Rogers or anybody else would have come after her and probably hung her.
True.
So her father
That's for sure.
kept her, spirited her away, and she kept her nose clean, and that was how she was going to live life, was in relative obscurity, being the wife to Joseph Burlow, and the mother of these 6 or 8 children, depending upon records.
Yeah.
And Anne died. The Anne Burlow that we believe is Anne Bonny died April 28th, 1782, at the age of 81. Quite an old age at that time.
Yeah, that's quite amazing.
It's possible that her sons fought for the Revolution, and
maybe so,
and survived and died. But Anne, unfortunately, there is no tombstone for her. The graveyard that she would have been buried at is now covered by asphalt and concrete, and is a highway, which is quite sad. So, she faded out in history. She disappeared, into the court records, and that was the last we heard of her. Now, Phillip Thomas Tucker has done quite a good job researching Anne and telling quite the story from everything that we have written or have known. And don't know how much of this is true, but this is a very good book. So if you want to know about Anne Bonny, a little bit about Mary, and a little bit about Jack, I would highly recommend this book, Anne Bonny, the Infamous Female Pirate, by Phillip Thomas Tucker. We don't have very many female pirates in history. We have Grace O'Malley, we have Anne, we have Mary, and then there's a couple other ones which are really small name, really not much known about. Anne and Mary being probably 2 of the most famous, along with Grace O'Malley.
Yeah.
But I would highly recommend this book.
Well, it's quite interesting, that their names have survived all the way up into this day, and that they've become famous, and they still mention their names. Anne Bonny and Mary Read. They're like folk heroes.
Right. There's songs about Anne and Mary.
True. Ladies who took on the world, at their own pace and their own challenges, and fought the world at their own terms. And there's sort of, kind of a proto-feminist kind of an idea there, that they stood out in the world of men and made their destiny their own. And it's quite admirable in that sense that they had to do it through piracy.
In modern times, strong women are everywhere. But back in the 1700s, there weren't any.
Not too often.
And, if Anne and Mary were alive today, they'd probably be heading up companies like Hewlett-Packard or IBM or some other corporation or whatever.
That's true. They might be having a position
corporate
of power.
pirates.
They'd be corporate pirates now. Well, there you go, friends. That's a great book. we've talked about it quite a bit, and I want everybody to say, you know, when they have a chance, say to their significant others, you know, honey, get me that book. I want to read there about the famous Anne Bonny the pirate, and I want to say, you know, I want to read more about this and learn the facts and the legends and myth and the lore of this pirate and all the other pirates she sailed with, and it fits into pirate history quite well. And it's always interesting to grab a book about Anne Bonny or Mary Read or Jack Rackham and read about them as real characters or even as fictional characters.
Right, there's quite a bit of fictional out there, not so much history. So, you know, I was more than happy when the captain bought me this book. And I tried to read pretty much anything I can about Anne and Mary.
True.
There's a book I'd like to read about the trials. It'll probably be drier than dry, but, you know, it would give me a good idea
It's got
of
some
everything
facts
that's
in there,
went into
though.
it. Right.
Yeah.
Because that's, you know, that's where our history of Anne and Mary come from.
True.
Is that trial.
True. Well, here you go, folks. We recommend this book, and we're going to say good day to you now, and smooth sailing. We're going to be on our way. And thank you so much for joining us here on our show, The Pirate Round. And stab that subscribe button there with your cutlass and spread the word of The Pirate Round. And folks, remember, you know, you never let anyone grind you under their boot heel. Never let anyone put you down. You be a pirate. You be 100% authentic. And always be strong and always be true.
Yar har and smooth
Smooth
sailing.
sailing. Yar har.
Infamous Anne Bonny, villainous, infamous Anne Bonny, villainous, infamous Anne Bonny, villainous, infamous Anne Bonny. Oh, I'll tell you a tale of the pirate queen, as she wolf who reigned the Caribbean Sea, with a pistol ready and a cutlass keen, the villainous, infamous Anne Bonny. Yes, yeah. Anne Bonny, villainous, yes, Anne Bonny. Born in Ireland scandalously, bastard daughter to a prosperous lawyer, shan-suited and society, for the love of a pirate boy. So Calico Jack and Anne Bonny, passionate lovers, villainous plunderers, set up for a life of piracy on a ship, the Revenge, aye! Oh, I'll tell you a tale of the pirate queen, as she will reign the Caribbean Sea, with a pistol ready and a cutlass keen, the villainous, infamous Anne Bonny. Yes, Anne Bonny, Anne Bonny, villainous, yes, Anne Bonny, Anne Bonny. But this was the 18th century, where men make knives and women make wives. So Anne disguised herself to be a deadly pirate boy. Oh, she plundered and murdered and raided the sea, with cannons roaring, pistols warring. She ravaged galleons mercilessly. Oh, Anne Bonny. Then a fellow pirate caught a glance her naked chest, a woman's breast. So she drew her cutlass and took a stand to be Anne, the pirate queen. Oh, I'll tell you a tale of the pirate queen, as she will reign the Caribbean Sea, with a pistol ready and a cutlass keen, the villainous, infamous Anne Bonny. Yes, Anne Bonny, Anne Bonny, villainous, yes, Anne Bonny, Anne Bonny. And that's when I met Mary Read, a pirate siren, female tyrant. Together they terrorized the sea, a buccaneering team. Oh, they plundered and murdered mercilessly. Anne and Mary Reid. On October 1720, gold they struck, so the boys got drunk. An easy opportunity for a ship of British Marines. Anne and Mary fought alone, with cutlass flying, pistols firing. They fought hard for their ocean throne, but lost their victory. And so the crew were captured, thrown in prison, death by hanging. But Anne Bonny was pardoned, for her belly held a child. She paid her Jack a visit, and this she said with no tear shed: if you had fought like a man, you wouldn't be about to die like a dog. She turned on her heel, walked out of the door, and vanished into legend. Oh, I'll tell you a tale of a pirate